A ping flashed my radar. 8.7 for dollars fare. 4.3-mile trip. Pickup 1.2 miles away. My finger clicked accept without hesitation. It was apparent to a math flunky that the fare would come in at over $1 a mile, and the ants were out tonight. I'd already calculated it at $1.59 a mile, but we just met, and I don't want to come across cocky. I eased into the pickup for rider, Margot, 3.9 stars, the extra T, no doubt responsible for her deflated rating. She made me wait for minutes before sliding into my car. Fastest route or fewest turns? I asked, searching for her eyes in the rearview mirror. Margot with a T responded with a pop of her bubble yum. There's no training to be an Uber ant, so you learn through what doesn't work. If you're a ride-sharer already headed that direction and want a little pocket change, any fare will do. If you need to worry about paying bills, you gotta be choosy. Short trips are king. You need to make $1 a mile to break even. That includes deadheading, so you better have math skills or develop them quick. If a long fare drops you in the middle of nowhere, the empty ride back factors into your calculation. Airports are the kiss of death. Uber artificially deflates airport fares based on the belief that travelers are well-to-do and more likely to tip, an assumption I have found to be bullshit. I pulled over at Margot's drop-off. A little further, she demanded in between smacks of gum. You need to change the destination in the app. Yeah, no idea how to do that. It's just like a mile, bro. Margot met my eyes in the rearview mirror. What? You want a 1-star rating? You could get an ant to light himself on fire under threat of a 1-star. Not only do ratings influence a Pax's willingness to get into a stranger's car, but Uber also uses them to determine who gets pinged with the plum fares. 4 unpaid miles later, Margot with a T exited my car V with a slam, nose buried in her phone as she clicked her way up the footpath to her Ayn Rand book club. Ding. Review received. 1-star HO. It should have tickled me when Margot tripped and starfished onto the lawn hard enough to knock the T off her name. But instead, I felt my teeth clenching, a low rumble building in my head louder and louder and louder until the car seemed to vibrate around me. Ding. Pickup request from Misfits Pub. Jimmy. Likely drunk. Nearly out of gas and patience. I declined. I calculated my timing belt had 250 miles left in it, and I needed a repair before it broke. Preventative maintenance was best in people and cars. It was time to fill up and call it a night. I pulled into Arco. $4.78 for regular. Fuck me into the sun. I first knew I was good with numbers in 7th grade statistics. I never raised my hand. It was much worse than that. Mr. Moliborski would cold call me when the class was stumped. Always having the correct answer made me radioactive to girls, so I offered the wrong one 20% of the time. Only Emma noticed. I had some sort of eye flutter when I lied. Emma was perfect in every way imaginable, and I dutifully avoided her. I forgot to switch off my app and got another ping at the gas pump. Jimmy. Same dude, probably stranded. To this day, I don't know why I clicked accept. I wonder how differently things might have turned out if I hadn't. But there I was, 13 of a mile from pickup when I heard the timing belt give out. That wasn't even the bad part. The packs loaded into my back seat without a sound. No words, no but sliding across fox leather, no belt click. Just silence. No, not silence. A void. Quickest route or fewest turns? I asked. Instead of searching the rear view for my Pax's eyes like I always did, I turned around. My eyes globbed. I was looking at myself. I slid into bed, careful not to disturb my wife. She had an exam tomorrow morning, and any disturbance might be responsible for a few percentage points. As I Cirque du Soleiled my body under the sheets, she turned and smiled. I'm pregnant. I beamed at Emma, the girl from statistics class. Didn't think I'd get up the guts to talk to her, did ya? When Emma was a kid, she used to tackle 8,000-piece puzzles in front of the GIF lineup every Friday night. But her most famous trick was solving a Rubik's Cube in under a minute. Her record was 43 seconds, which she achieved in front of the cafeteria as we scarfed on rectangular pizza slices. She'd graduated from puzzles to people, and I was her 1,000,000-piece challenge. We'd been unsuccessfully trying to get pregnant for years. I cited cost for refusing medical help, but it was more a fear of a doctor challenging my already diminished manhood. I argued it just took longer in our late 30s. Teenagers got pregnancies they didn't want at the flip of an erection, and we put our careers in front of building families and then wonder why we can't get pregnant. Not that I had a career beyond Uber. I set all that aside to support Emma's dream of returning to school to become a therapist. As we laid in bed, staring into each other's eyes, I felt a tickle on my hand. I raised my finger to a ladybug tottering over my thumb. A sign of good luck. It was the happiest moment of my life. Fuck this motherfuck piece of donkey shit. I was no mechanic, and staring at the engine of my car that refused to start merely confirmed. Despite my 11-minute YouTube education, I still wasn't able to repair my timing belt. Car trouble. Our neighbor, Ted, observed astutely from his lawn. Yeah, Ted, I tossed back with the minimum threshold of sarcasm required by law. Ted was an actor who drove Uber part-time to make ends meet, not an ant-lifer like me, so we compared notes occasionally. Everything was a performance with Ted. He watered his flowers with panache, combing his hands through his hair, careful to let me know about his green thumb and ability to grow bangs. I had my car towed into G&D Automotive, run by Gustavo, who I'd gotten to know over the years. Ants know their mechanics. As Gustavo wrestled with the timing belt, I sat in a waiting room spotted by grease and termite droppings. Local news ran on the tube television on the desk. Here's the thing. It wasn't so much the grotesque details of the murder being reported that grabbed my attention, though it probably should have been. A beheading was news even in law, where even the criminals try to one-up each other. And it certainly wasn't the victim's name. Margot Truscott didn't ring a bell. What chilled my bones was the headshot. It looked a lot like Margot with a T. 476-53, Gustavo shouted from behind, neglecting to monitor me for heart failure. I handed over my Discover card, shut up, and held my breath as he swiped. Gustavo shook his head at the declined message. I'd already started running through options in my head, ask my estranged father for a loan, fall sobbing at Gustavo's feet, hang myself from a ceiling fan when an Uber message dinged my cell. Tip added from Jimmy, $476.53. The back of my neck suddenly grew warm and humid. I felt pulsating breaths against my skin. There was a presence behind me, and I wasn't sure it was human. When I spun around, no one was there. I scrubbed past footage of my back seat from the previous night's rides. There was the pukey girl, the guy on MDMA that turned my car V into an EDM rave. Margot with a T. Margot was almost certainly the girl from the news report, but she wasn't who I was looking for. There. I hit play, and there he was. There I was. Jimmy seemed to resemble me, but it was hard to tell. He was partially hidden in shad. WHAT are you doing? I'm sure Emma didn't all caps yell, but it felt like it. She peered over my shoulder at my computer screen. I asked her, do you notice anything odd about this Pax? Pax, passenger. I swear you guys speak a different language. She didn't mean anything by it, but that you guys really got in my feelings. I started driving to make a few bucks on the side when she went back to school. Now I was a you guys with ambition nowhere in sight. Emma leaned into the screen. He's hiding in the shadows. She didn't mean it to be terrifying, I don't think. Then, a street lamp draped the Pax's face in a yellow hue. See, he looks just like me, I exclaimed. She bolted out of the room. From the sounds emanating from the bathroom, it didn't seem she was running from the footage. Morning sickness called, and cleanup was needed on aisle 7. I scrubbed the last of several stray pieces of vomit plastered to the outside of the toilet bowl when the doorbell rang, leading me to wonder if anyone other than axe murderers make house calls. "Oh, hello, officer," I stammered from behind my Walter White smock and goggles. "James Wiggins?" Officer Smirkinish inquired. "I need to ask you some questions, Okay? At the station, honey, who is it?" Emma yelled from the bedroom. I was thankful she couldn't see my eyes flutter as I returned some excuse about running an errand. I suppose it was a kindness that Smirkinish didn't force me to ride in the back seat of the cruiser, but it was clear that's where he thought I belonged. At the precinct, he locked me in a showbox of an interrogation room and let me sweat it out like an old pair of Nikes. The red dot of the security camera studied me like its prey on the open savanna, preparing to eviscerate my meats. When Smirkinish finally came in, I was ready to confess to GFK and Epstein. "What's your occupation?" "Uber I drive," I responded flawlessly. "Not Lyft." "I don't like pink," I said, not wanting to get into the lifetime ban issued after a false user complaint last year. "Did you give a—" Smirkinish checked his notes. "A Margot Truscott, a ride 3 nights ago." "We don't get last names." He flashed a photo of Margot with a T. "May she rest in peace, or at least starved on a lawn." "Are you aware she was murdered the night you gave her a ride?" "No, that's a terrible. We believe you were the last person to see her alive." Smirkinish scraped his metal chair closer, a move he'd perfected. "We have evidence tying you to the scene of the murder. Poker paid my tuition at Santa Monica Community College. It was the perfect combination of my strength numbers and my weakness people. I got better at the second part after learning the fundamental truth about poker. Who you are at the felt is who you are in life. If you're an aggressive bluffer trying to shove the table around no matter the hole cards, I'd wager 10 to 1 you're a bloviating asshole to the waiter too. I lost my love for the game, but not before I learned how to disassociate. An opponent couldn't read me if I was detached from the cards I was holding. I was physically at the felt, but mentally, cabot. Criminals made for great poker players and vice versa. This was my first police interrogation, but I'd already withdrawn far behind my eyes, present in front of Smirkinish in technicality only. I jerked the car V back into my lane as a pickup truck raced by. My eyes adjusted from blaring headlights to dark road. "Watch where you're going, Chief," a businessman in a Brooks Brothers suit hollered from my back seat. I was just shocked to discover I was diving. I didn't remember getting into the car. What time was it anyway? Jesus, 3:23 a.m. I can only guess what I'd told Smirkinish. Weeks passed, and Emma grew more pregnant, as pregnant women do. "Here's what you missed on this season of Uber fucked my life." A slurry dude named Dodge sporting a handlebar mustache and a no-fear t-shirt piled into my Uber, screaming at me to take him to some bar. It was the bar he'd just stumbled out of. I was struggling to get to a pickup point because of an accident. It turned out that one of the drivers in the accident was my Pax, and he was Ubering to the hospital to avoid an ambulance charge. A bachelorette party put their passed-out bride into my back seat to continue partying without her. The bride spelled her name Taylor like vowels came at a premium. When she woke, she jumped out of my car, screaming she'd been kidnapped. I hadn't heard from Smirkanish. I contemplated calling the precinct to see if I was still a murder suspect, but that seemed a bit like the kid who reminded Mr. Maliborski at the end of statistics class that he'd forgotten to assign homework. It was me. I did that. $3.13 fare. 3.6-mile trip. I clicked accept without calculation. Uber was squeezing us with a new fare structure that went like this: ping a specific driver with a lowball offer. After he declined, the fare was put out to bid, where the rest of the ants had seconds to decide whether to accept a lower fee in a race to the bottom. It was pretty neat and cool, and I had no notes. It was raining hard now, and I was driving 14-hour days. Emma was 16 weeks pregnant, and we didn't have health insurance in America and stuff. I'd even been doing airport rides hot tip. They don't tip. The only fare I declined was a hospital ride. Hospitals didn't have the resources to provide all their discharges with rides home, so they took to booking Uberxl. Inevitably, when you got your packs to drop off, they needed help to get into their houses. Touching a pax was sin numero uno, and watching patients crawl to their doorsteps was a total bummer. I picked up the pax. She was hammered and demanded Drake. When I dropped her 8 minutes later, she dropped herself. She face-planted into the steps of the next party. There's a lot of falling in my line of work. I probably should have hung it up for the night right there. I needed to meet Emma at the Geno to find out the sex of our baby. I was already in the doghouse for not building the crib she ordered off Amazon, so I couldn't be late. Just one more fare. $8.54. 8.3-mile trip. Except, as I pulled up to the pickup point, the hair on my arm crackled upright. I knew who my pax was before he got in. He slid into the back seat. I'd say he appeared if that didn't sound crazy. I met his black eyes in the rear view. He was riding under a new username, Cyrus. He didn't make a sound the entire ride, and when we got to the destination, he didn't move. Neither did I. I was too scared. I cleared my throat. That'll show him. This is you, no movement. I fumbled with the handle of an umbrella underneath my seat. What I was going to do with a yellow polka dot umbrella wasn't apparent, but it was time to make a move. I spun around, and there he was, as crystal clear as Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men. He was me. The same thick eyebrows, the hairline that receded at the same angle. His stubble was missing in the same spot that would connect mustache to beard on the right side of a more masculine mouth. He kept staring. Not at me, but through me, as if seeing my soul, my weakness. I was determined to prove him wrong. Get out. A half smile parted the right side of his mouth, and I regretted my demand. So I doubled down. Get out of my car. To the most assertive I'd ever been. He didn't blink. I wondered if he'd ever blinked. A shiver rolled up my spine. I swung open the door and launched into the rain. I didn't even open my polka dot umbrella. I'm a man. I swung around to the passenger side. Now or never, do IT now. I flung open the door, but he was gone. I'm not sure how long I stood in the rain, mouth gapped, when my cell buzzed. I pressed the cell to my ear. We're having twins. Emma's voice was terse with anger. Thanks for showing up. And then she hung up. I sulked into the house, prepared to receive my just punishment. Emma was at the kitchen table, mulling the cleanest way to dispose of my unimpressive body. Emma, I'm so. She sprung out of her chair and threw her arms around me. She kissed me a real kiss, not the ceremonial peck that couples who have been together 10 years give where they retract as if touching polonium to 1-0. Without a word, she led to me into the bedroom. When I spoke, she shushed. It was like the old days when we were learning each other's bodies. We tried things we hadn't tried since we couldn't keep our hands off each other, and if it was possible for Emma to get pregnant again, she would have. Feel free to strike that from the record. So, twinsa? I said, lying next to her in the afterglow. She laughed, and I refrained from asking what the hell had just transpired. As I stood in the doorway of the room that was to become our nursery, I only had more questions. The walls were painted, stenciled ducks swam around the perimeter, the baby dresser was installed, the Babbletto crib assembled. And I hadn't done any of it. I glared at a duck, but whatever secrets he had will go to his grave. We ate cereal for dinner. Emma stole glances at me in between spoonfuls. I couldn't help but think the newfound electricity was ill-gotten. I wasn't about to tell her I didn't build the nursery, and I didn't know who had. Who knows, maybe I did it when I was so exhausted from driving that I don't remember. Let's go with that. Before I knew it, my mouth was forming words. Dumb words. He's back, fell from one of the holes in my face. Who, the Pax that looks like me? Well, they say we all have a twin, she said with a calming nonchalance. Normally, I would have calculated the odds that my single twin in all the world got into my car twice its 0.000000004, but I was too busy contemplating the purple horseshoe marshmallow in my bowl. What made horseshoes lucky anyway? An animal relegated to being ridden by humans for sport didn't strike me as particularly fortuitous, and that's before we considered their shoes are nailed to their fucking feet. My mouth was off to the races like Secretariat. It's not that he looks like me. He is me, Emma laughed. She had this snort that made me love her a little more each time. Oh, you're not kidding, she realized. Strange things have been happening. Strange like what? I didn't really build the crib? I'm the suspect in a brutal murder? I have this gnawing fear that the twins aren't even me. I feel like I'm being watched. Seemed like a safe share. You know what this is. Repressed trauma. I don't have repressed trauma. That's what someone with repressed trauma would say. Emma thought my father was the root of my problems, but I never saw Dad hurt a fly. He used to take me on annual father-son vacations when I was young. When I was 5, we went to Cabo. The next year was New York to see Don Mattingly play. Dad hollered out in between innings, and Donnie Baseball tossed me the ball. Dad was great that way. My favorite trip was when he took me to Disney World. Disney World blows Disneyland out of the water, and I'll not have any more discussion on the matter. I was 12, and it would be our last father-son trip. An email came in from Uber support. Hi, James Wiggins. Your driver account has been suspended for poor passenger experience. Please review the following. A rider filed a complaint for unprofessional conduct for a fare completed at 1:34 a.m. on 5/06/24. The driver drove past my drop-off. I told him to stop, but he wouldn't. He stared at me with these dead fucking eyes while he was driving. He kidnapped me. I had to break the door handle off because of the child locks. I called Uber support to tell them this simply wasn't possible. I wasn't even fucking driving at that time. I know because it was one of the only days I took off to go to a Cinco de fucking Mayo party at Emma's urging. Uber fucking support told me there was nothing they could do. My account was fucking suspended until their fucking investigation was complete. Dang it. I stormed out to my car V, slid open the backseat door, and there it was, a door handle sitting on the floorboards. I got into the driver's seat, and it was too far from the steering wheel. I slid the seat forward, but something was stuck in the track. I reached down and pulled at an object. Cylindrical. Squishy. When I finally tore it out, the color drained from my face. It was a severed human finger. What's wrong? Emma asked, climbing into shotgun. I jammed the finger into my coat pocket. Nothing, just a human finger in my pocket. Noticing my eye flutter, she kissed me on the cheek It's a good day. Don't screw it up. Dr. Lukovic smeared the magical wand into the jelly puddle on Emma's stomach, and we saw our daughters for the first time. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you die, but it happens when you fall in love too. Pivotal moments rode pulses of electricity through my brain. The time the class laughed at my stutter. The first time Emma used my name. My annual trips with Dad. The only time I saw my mother cry. It all conspired to lead to this moment, looking into my daughter's eyes next to the woman I could have dreamt into existence. You ever hear about the twin Jims? Dr. Lukovic exploded my reverie. Jim Lewis and Jim Springer. They were adopted by separate families. They both got married twice. First wives named Linda, second wives both named Betty. They both had sons named James Allen. Both had dogs they named Toy. He tapped the monitor with a live feed of what appeared to be a UFC match between our daughters. They'll share a lifetime bond you couldn't imagine. After the appointment, I couldn't help myself. Know anything about doppelgangers? I asked Dr. Lukovic. The word sat like a stench. Doppelganger. I hadn't considered the word until it fell out of my mouth. Doppelganger. Now it just sounded funny. Doppelganger. Lukovic was out of the door before finishing. See you in for weeks, leaving me alone with Emma and the glare. Things were bad. Uber hadn't resolved my case. I hadn't heard from Officer Smirkanish, but could only assume I was still a suspect. Money was tight, and the babies were racing at us like wet flesh rockets. We threw one of those new age baby showers where guys are invited. They're not fun, but at least there's alcohol. We had sex. Everyone come celebrate the aftermath. Bring gifts. I took mercy on my friends and didn't invite them. I'm kidding. I don't have friends. Ted brought a large wrapped gift and a bottle of Barefoot Cabernet Sauvignon. The present was no doubt a Hot Wheels track set or charcuterie board or something else wildly inappropriate for a newborn. We were halfway through his cheap bottle of wine when I inexplicably told him what I hadn't even told Emma. The Uber suspension and the broken door handle. So either you were drunk and don't remember creeping out some poor packs, or your twin broke into your account to snag a fare. He pointed out. I don't drive drunk, I defended, not considering the alternative wasn't any better. Dude. That's fucked up, shit man. Guy talk refreshed the soul. Need any help? Ted asked, fake offering money. Fuck you, Ted. You want to do me a favor? Bring a decent bottle of wine. Why don't you just drive for Lyft? I don't like how they spell their name, I said as my eye fluttered. It's okay, Ted didn't know my tell. I admire you, Ted broke into a compliment. Here you are supporting Emma without thinking about your own dreams. I wish I could be happy just being an Uber driver. Yeah, I said, mispronouncing, eat your own shit, Ted. Have you seen him since? Huh, the doppeldude. Aren't doppelgangers supposed to steal your life or some shit? Ted helped himself to my bottle priced 186% higher than his barefucking foot cab. You know I took this human sexuality class at university once. He always called it university. You're from Idaho, idiot. One day, the instructor told the class to close their eyes. He told us to imagine two scenarios. The first one, you come home to find your mate having sex with someone else. Passionate, vigorous, screaming sex. I was suddenly furious with Ted's oversized gums. Scenario 2. You're watching your mate walk a sandy beach with someone else. The sun is setting. They're holding hands. You can see they're falling in love, and those tiny little teeth. Fucking chiclet teeth, Ted. With our eyes closed, he had us raise our hands for whichever scenario bothered us more. The women were more bothered by the falling in love scenario, while the guys were more bothered by the sex scenario. Why do you think that is? As long as you die soon, I'm cool with any explanation. As humans, it's our primary evolutionary goal to pass down our DNA. What's the biggest threat to women who bear the children? If the husband, the provider of resources, fell in love with someone else and took those resources away, doesn't that feel a bit reductive? I countered, uncertain what reductive meant. Evolution doesn't give a shit about your gender equality studies, James. Now for the man, the worst thing for him would be to spend resources raising someone else's DNA, which is why men have such a reaction to their spouse cheating. I suspected a point was nigh. You know what I'd take if I was your doppelganger? Ted moved closer, baring his Godzilla gums. He nodded toward Emma. Or was he nodding at her pregnant belly? Either way, Ted had to go, and I was going to be the one to tell him. In just a second, I grit my teeth in the bathroom mirror. I think it's time you left, Ted. Too non-specific. Tell him what he did. I didn't appreciate what you said about my wife babies, Ted. Too civil. Ted, take your barefucking foot cab and ram it up your ass until your gummy face is a wine topper. I like your spirit, me. I spun the faucet dial and washed water over my face. As my hands rubbed against my cheeks, I froze. Something felt wrong. I retracted my hand. My pointer finger was gone, a bloody stump in its place. Dropping a deuce? A friend's boyfriend barked from the other side of the door. When I looked back at my hand, my fingers were fine, not a single piggy missing. I exited the bathroom determined to sink my feelings of unease into telling Ted to get bent. I spotted him chatting with Emma. The audacity. He touched her stomach. Emma giggled. The balls. I watched Emma look at Ted, the hairline I'd slap a puppy for, and considered for a horrible moment that she was into him. And then Ted lowered a Frito into my homemade bean dip. A bridge too far. I took an angered step forward and raised the royal finger of admonishment. Boom, boom, boom. A banging at the door. I impotently lowered the finger of doom and despair, sashayed to the front door, and opened. Officer Smirkanish stared at me from his deep-set eyes. What's this about? Emma appeared behind me. The jig was up. It was a good run, but she was about to discover I was a murder suspect, and I'd hid it from her. As I contemplated whether that guy on the billboards really was the best divorce attorney this side of the Mississippi, Smirkanish extended his hand. Hank, he said. Emma shook his hand as he continued. I'm a friend of James. I didn't think James had friends. Emma laughed. Come in. To my horror, Smirkanish took a step inside. Our guests ogled as I led the cop that was to arrest me for homicide into my own baby shower. Smirkanish pulled me away from the others. Took months for the subpoena to go through stonewalling Uber pricks, but we finally got the records. You were across town when the murder took place. He reached out his hand. A man admits when he's wrong, and just like that, I was no longer a murder suspect. Thank you, sir. I said like a dork. Maybe things were going to be okay after all. Whoop. Ted fell to his knees. His eyes globbed. A terrible crackle escaped from his chest. He's choking. Someone exclaimed with a full mouth. These people ate like bovines. Except he wasn't choking. Ted's fingers turned inward like claws. His eyes saucered. A gray pallor came over his skin as if dying in fast motion. His neck bulged. Something crawled underneath his skin, zigging and zagging alongside his jugular. Ted clawed at his throat, screaming as if burning alive. I swore I heard the slithering of tissue and snapping of sinews. The bulges worked down his jawline, and with a glottal gasp, 2 ladybugs emerged from Ted's mouth, pittering red dots across my white carpeting like a bloody to be continued. Everyone gaped in horror at the grotesque scene, except for me. I was fixated on the man standing outside my window watching us. He was me, lips slanted in a half-smile, plotting the takeover of my life.